Okay, everyone, we're going to try and react to what the hell happened last night. It's interesting because we're on social media at the moment, and Celtic have just qualified for the knockout rounds of the Champions League, by the way, for the first time in over a decade, and that's not even the thing people are chatting about, Enda. So I guess it kind of sums up that there's a fair bit for us to get through today. What a night. Incredible.
Yeah, barely got my breath back before I lost it again when I saw the news about Kyogo. So we'll touch on that later on. But yeah, I think it was one of those nights where it looked like it was just another night for Celtic where they just didn't stick the ball in the net, and then we were going to concede like a silly goal. And except for Kasper Schmeichel pulling off a couple of saves, it could have well ended up that way as well. But thankfully, Big Adamita managed to get the ball in the net, whether it was off him or off the defender. It went in, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, it was. It certainly felt like in the second half, like it was potentially going that way because you just felt young boys were growing in confidence, and I thought for the last half an hour we really struggled to pass the ball. There was like kind of misunderstandings there. Some of the stuff we've maybe seen in recent weeks where players are passing the ball but not necessarily having another player coming to the ball, and young boys, as I say, were growing in confidence, and they had a couple of chances, and it just felt, knowing that we had to win the game, it was a bit of a bleak place with 10 minutes to go, knowing that we'd been in such a strong position in the Champions League, all the early results we had, that we might be on the verge of throwing it away. Luckily, a great Irishman stepped up, and although he didn't score, he certainly had a telling impact. And Rio Hatate's pass was brilliant as well. Listen, we've started talking about the game, and I've just remembered we've got a clip sent in from Stevie, who you'll see where Stevie is. It's a pretty cool place.
Alright, disclaimer everyone. I know that there was a great guy who watches the channel saying that the lights blind him. There's nothing I can really do about being here at Celtic Park and the floodlights still being on. But hey, it's a better background than my room, is it not? I'll get right into it. Celtic won, Young Boys 0. We're through the playoffs eventually. I did feel that we had a chance in us. I didn't know it was going to become that late. I thought we'd maybe get a goal 60, 65 minutes, and then we'd be doing that classic hanging on, Young Boys missing loads of chances, and then we either sneak it or we get sucker punched. In the end, we did sneak it. An own goal was enough to see us through after fantastic work from Rio Hatate and really good play from Adamida. Getting right back to it in the first half, we did everything other than, we did score, but a hat-trick of goals for Furuhashi and a terrible missed penalty from Engels. And I said to our pal Hamish, Lewis, at half-time, I was like, I hope this isn't got like Copenhagen written all over it. You know what I mean? I remember Copenhagen 2019, really important game. Somehow, we could have been 3 or 4 up, El Younousi missing chances, Rogic, Edward, and then, what happened, second half collapse. I thought the first half, no complaints, played really well, cut through them with pace, and it was that pace that led to I say goals, but obviously it was, I've not even seen the replays back or anything, so I feel as if I'm all judged to comment on how harsh they were or not. But the main thing is we created those opportunities and we caused Young Boys problems through our sheer pace alone. And the midfield were excellent, first half especially. Engels not so much, but thought Hatate had really nice phases of play. Callum McGregor, who I've got to start criticising him more, shut me up tonight. I thought he was excellent. Trusty, who got slaughtered against Dundee, thought he stood up really well tonight. CCV brilliant. But I feel as if we've really got to give a shout out to new contract hero Kasper Schmeichel. His double save around about 60 minutes kept us in that. An amazing save actually from where I was sitting. Really important, really vital. And one of the main things I would say is it's arguably we lost a bit of control in the second half, and Young Boys take that chance. Do we come back from it? I don't know. But the main thing is we've got through. I mean, that's all I care about. I'm not going to nitpick, not going to criticise, I'm not going to say, he should have done that, he should have done that. Celtic are unbeaten at home in the Champions League stage, and that is what I was saying back in, I think, August or September when we were doing the videos, Hamish. I said that was the key goal. We needed to stay unbeaten, get points at home, and that's 3 wins and a draw. you really can't ask more for the team there. And now we can go to Birmingham next week when the pressure's off. Yeah, really happy with how we've managed to do this. Yeah, I could say we maybe got lucky with our opponents too. Celtic teams in the past have had easier teams and they've blew it. This team didn't. And for all the criticism they've endured this season, everything was building up to this. We've done it, we've won this game, and hopefully now it lifts some of the pressure in the team and they can start playing with a bit of freedom, because you don't know, maybe some players maybe felt as if there was a lot of expectation on this, and it's fair to say there was. But now, maybe let's see how we do going forward from this. Really big hurdle jumped, and I'm excited for like the next half of the season. Not going to get into the whole financial side of it, load of nonsense. We don't care about that, but obviously it's important for the club. Main thing is teams stood up and won games that they really ought to should have in the Champions League. I'm not going away regretful and annoyed at more missed opportunities. We've taken our chances, we're through, and that's all that matters. And I hope you had a good time with Enda watching it at a stupid hour. I don't even know what time it was for you, but back to you in the studio.
So yeah, big thanks to Stevie for sending that in. He's buzzing after the game in Celtic Park, looking glorious there in the background. Yeah, he made a good point actually there about our home record and the fact that, you know, we've taken 10 points from 12 at home in the Champions League this year, which is a hell of a record. And I guess a big part of that has been the support. And I thought the support, I thought in the main the support really stuck with the team. It was something I was worried about before the game, but I felt even though we didn't get that first half goal, despite all the huffing and puffing and the chances, I felt the support really stuck with the team, and it worked out in the end.
Yeah, and there was kind of debate about this earlier on the week with the Green Brigade putting out that statement, and podcasts kind of talking about the atmosphere. And I did think the atmosphere was really good. It's always a good test of the Champions League atmosphere, of how much of the UEFA anthem you can hear at the start, and it was literally drowned out. But outside of that, even when it wasn't going well in the second half, you could still see the fans were still really trying to push the team on, and like that probably does help. Like, it's kind of undeniable in the Champions League at this point that the atmosphere does help. So maybe that is what helps Celtic get over the line. And then like Rio Hatate, I was calling for him to come off like 5 minutes before he produced that worldly of a pass, but then he just seemed to get that little bit of energy as well after that. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, it definitely is a factor. And given the record that we have at home, I think probably impressed with Celtic's away record this year. And that's saying something, considering that literally all we had to do was the bare minimum of getting a draw against Atalanta for me to say that Celtic's away form has been better in the Champions League. But yeah, it's going to be a massive factor in the playoffs as well.
Yeah, I agree totally. Listen, if we go back to the start of the game, I mean, the first minute or so was young boys kind of started relatively well, and they had that foray into the box, and suddenly you're going, right, this team might not be as bad as people have been making out. But I did think very quickly after that we established control of the game, and like, I don't know if there'll have been a more dominant half in any of the games in the Champions League tonight, because we were all over them for that half. I was listening, I shouldn't incriminate myself here, but I was listening to a former Celtic goalkeeper who may or may not have been on commentary that you're not meant to get in this country, but anyway, I'll stop talking. I was listening to Joe Hart, and he was speaking about young boys not being well organised from his view, and Celtic getting loads of opportunities, and he was really confident that we'd get our chances, and boy did we have chances in that first half. I mean, you talk about the what was it? So 2 offside goals for Kyogo. One of them, the one when Maida crossed it to him, it wasn't actually Kyogo. I think it was Maida that was offside. I thought Kyogo was potentially behind the ball, but it was Maida was the one that was offside. The first one, he was clearly offside, and the middle one was the foul from McGregor, wasn't it? And it was a weird one, that, because you really thought McGregor had won the ball cleanly when you first watched it, but then the minute you saw the replay, it's like, nah, it's a clear foul. It was weird how the young boys players didn't appeal more for that at the time. But anyway, yeah, I mean, even away from those, the chances we had, Nicholas Kuhn had one, didn't he, when he cut in from the right, and there was numerous other ones. Hatate had a few shots as well.
Yeah, there was a couple of crosses from Kuhn as well. I thought Kuhn was actually pretty poor in this game overall, especially in the second half. He was pretty anonymous. But I mean, like the first half, speaking of all those goals, like individually, they were all really good goals as well, and like really good team goals, and goals that you see Celtic scoring quite often. In that, the first goal was like, it was one back in our half, and it was a quick pass straight through to Kyogo, who was obviously on the move already. The second offside goal, I think Engels wins the ball well in his own half again, plays a nice little pass out to Maida, who's just like marginally offside, and it's in then to Kyogo. And then even the penalty that was like, you've seen Cal McGregor close down the opposition like that for the third goal that was given for a foul, but the penalty was, again, that's more quintessential Celtic play, pressing high, Maeda getting a nice touch in the box, putting defenders under pressure, and then Greg Taylor gets fouled. Like, we see that week in, week out with Celtic under Brendan Rodgers. So to see that translating into the Champions League, that's what we've been waiting for. We did it against Slovan, and we did it tonight against Young Boys. If we had did it against Zagreb and Bruges, that's sort of where the frustration was coming from, was that we haven't produced it at times, but tonight was not a stodgy game. It wasn't a game where if it did end 0-0, you could come away with the same feeling that you came away with after the Bruges game. Like, it wasn't a bad performance. It was a really, really strong one. They were just unlucky. Like, this game in theory could have ended 5-0, so you can't really be angry after that.
Yeah, I mean, we had so many chances, and like, Young Boys offered very little apart from that kind of chance he had early on. They really didn't offer much, and I just thought Callum McGregor was excellent tonight. Right from the start, he had a bit of play in the first half where he was under pressure and he just nutmegged the guy, and I just thought, like, that was what he brought tonight. You could tell that he was so up for the match, but he wasn't like up for it in terms of like absolutely tearing into challenges. He was up for getting the ball and moving it quickly and not giving the ball away sloppily. And Rio Hatate, someone who I can't speak for you, but I think the vast majority of Celtic fans have had their frustrations with in recent months. I felt he had one moment, I think he was caught in possession in the first half, but I thought generally he was much tighter with his play, and he was a really important player for us, and had a really good game. So Brendan Rodgers' decision to start him is clearly, was the right one, and Engels was good as well. I thought Diaz and Maida just gave us a real option in that first half, running in behind. So I thought we're in massive control of that first half. But how were you feeling at 0-0, knowing we'd passed up all those opportunities? I felt kind of relatively calm, but I know some other Celtic fans were very concerned that it was going to be one of those nights.
Once we started giving the ball away in the second half, I think the big difference, you mentioned Cal McGregor, was in the second half, Young Boys changed their shape and started man-marking McGregor. And that's how you stop Celtic. If you can stop Cal McGregor, you can stop Celtic from getting out, because there's just too much of a gap between the likes of Engels or Hatate, and then there's no out ball for Celtic really to bounce it off. So I think that was the big issue, was that they had two men on Cal McGregor, and that kind of block passes out, and then Engels wasn't really getting on the ball as much. They were trying to force the ball forward, giving the ball away. Kind of Young Boys grew into the game, and then all of a sudden they're winning the second ball, they're winning the third ball. They're still diving around and wasting time, even though they've got 0 points on the board in the Champions League, which is, I mean, it was embarrassing stuff really at times from Young Boys. But there were moments where you're like, oh, not again. Like, this is nightmare territory. But I think the subs did make a difference when they did come on. Like, Bernardo got on the ball a little bit more. Thought Valle was decent when he got on the ball. Greg Taylor just lucked out of it. And then, of course, Adameda, I don't think Kyogo makes that run, firstly. But secondly, I also don't think he has the strength to hold off the defender in that moment where Adameda just gets his body in the way. And if he doesn't get a shot on goal, the defender probably throws him over, and it's probably a penalty. Yeah. So, you have to give credit to the guys who came on as well.
Yeah, I mean that was the thought I had. I was waiting on Ida being taken out and us winning another penalty. I don't know if his shot was going in. I'd need to watch it again. I feel like just haven't seen it at the time that it was maybe going wide, but it's kind of difficult to tell. But we'll clearly claim it. Listen, we'll come to that. Kasper Schmeichel. We need to discuss Kasper Schmeichel because, listen, I tweeted this earlier, but history tells us that when Celtic qualify for the knockout rounds of the Champions League, and I believe this is the fourth time we've now done it. I think we've done it twice under Gordon Strachan, once under Neil Lennon. We've now done it under Brendan Rodgers, albeit that this is for the last 24 rather than the last 16. I think it's still an amazing achievement. When we've done it previously, we've had, I think, world-class goalkeepers making huge saves at huge times. So Artur Boric did it for us clearly. Probably the best goalkeeper I've ever seen play for Celtic. Fraser Forster as well made, those Barcelona games. And tonight, Kasper Schmeichel did it. I mean, that double save near the start of the second half is... I sometimes think you exaggerate these things a bit because you always go, make sure you mention that because that's quite a cool point to make. But they genuinely were two unbelievable saves. The first one in particular is like a world-class save. It's going right in and he has to move his arm up so quickly. It's like hit hard by the guy and then to steady himself. And the second one's deflected as well, which actually I think helps him. But what a huge moment from him. And obviously he's just announced that he's signed a new 1-year extension as well. So a huge day for Kasper.
Yeah, and I think the second save you're referring to there, I actually kind of started laughing when I saw the replay of it because as he's getting up, he's like a dog trying to find his space when he's going to sleep because he's swerved around a couple of times. So even just to find his bearings enough to get some sort of a block on it was very impressive. And yeah, like it's just the calmness and the leadership that comes from Kasper Schmeichel outside of the obvious goalkeeping upgrade that he has been on Joe Hart. I think is a lot to be said for that because in the Champions League you need to be able to trust your goalkeeper to pass the ball back. You need to be able to trust them to take it under pressure, and Celtic were able to do that tonight. They've been able to do it throughout the group stages, and then when the time comes to make the saves, he's made the saves. So we are talking like almost bare minimum stuff, but it is bare minimum stuff the Celtic haven't had for years now. So fully deserving of his contract. And I think when we look back on this Brendan Rodgers campaign, you're probably looking at Kasper Schmeichel being the key signing. I didn't think it was going to be him. When I saw it, I was like, seems a little too convenient, worked with him at Leicester, give a pal a call up and see what he's at. But he's been so good and thoroughly deserving of the Celtic contract, and probably is the best goalkeeper Celtic have had since the last knockout stages of the Champions League. So, I mean, I was in TY transition year of secondary school when Celtic last qualified for a knockout group. So, nearly 30 now. So that tells you how long it's been.
Scary stuff. No, I mean he's made big saves throughout this campaign, and from memory, I remember one at the start of the second half against Leipzig that was a really big save, and the ones in Bergamo against Atalanta were big, and I think Club Brugge as well. And that's the difference right there. If that young boy's goal goes in, I think it possibly does become one of those nights, and I don't know if Celtic have got 2 goals in them after that to win the game, and that might be the difference between qualifying for the top 24 or not. That's the fine margin. So huge moment. You mentioned Joe Hart there as well. I don't know if you saw, but again, I managed to see this. TNT had Joe Hart interviewing Kasper after the game, which was pretty cool. Did we create much after that before the goal? I'm trying to think of we had Trusty. Did he have a header off the bar?
He had a header from a corner that I think the keeper got a hand on. But that was, sometimes I take notes on the game, and from the second half, that was my first note, and my next note wasn't until Hatate's pass.
Okay.
That's so yeah.
Go to the goal then, because Hatate, as we say, he's had his critics, but I mean, that pass is just is unbelievable. And for as much as people have been critical of him, and listen, I was so critical after Ibrox, you have to praise him for that unbelievable bit of brilliance, because again, that's the bit of quality we needed.
Well, this is the issue with Hatate, is that we know he can do this, and we've seen him do it, and he doesn't do it every week. And you can't expect him to do it every week. But the problem is these performances come once every 5 or 6 weeks now. It's it's getting to the point where it is quite frustrating, and he has the ability. It just he needs to just produce it more often. I was actually I said earlier that I was calling for him to come off. I just thought he was wrecked. I didn't think he had the legs left in him, and probably Luke McCowan would have been the option there. Does Luke McCowan pull off that pass? I don't think so. I actually don't think don't think Cal McGregor pulls it off. I don't Arnie Engels may pull it off on the other side, but certainly not with his bad foot, and certainly not with the precision that Hatate did. So that's the reason we get frustrated as Celtic fans with Rio Hatate, because we know he's capable of pulling off those world-class moments, and he just doesn't do it often enough. But yeah, it's the composure, the little shrug of the shoulder to give himself a little bit more time, and then even just the vision to pull it off, and the audacity to do it with his left foot as well. That's a player who backs himself, which you need in these moments.
Yeah, and Brendan Rodgers made the point after the game that we actually played out under pressure even before that Hatate moment, and I think that was pretty good given all the pressure that was happening, the fact that we kept playing. Great run from Adam Ida. I just had a feeling when Ida came on that he was going to do something big, just because he's had this long drought for a goal, or a long wait for a goal, and I just had a feeling when he came on that something big was going to happen, and obviously he doesn't score, and you could argue maybe he should score, but he makes the telling contribution alongside Hatate, and I should really have this guy's name written down, Enda, because he's an absolute hero. And I was tweeting earlier, he's going to have a CSC named after him, guaranteed. But the young boys defender who put the ball into the net,
Benito,
Loris Benito. Thank you. What a wonderful man he is. I think he's a captain as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he got booked earlier, a couple of minutes earlier for this, for a little. He claimed a throw in, and he was holding on to the ball, which they did an awful lot before the referee decided to do anything about it. He was booked 5 or 6 minutes before that. But yeah, should Adamina score? Maybe, but also, like I said, it's quite a close angle whenever he gets the ball eventually, and I think even if he doesn't get a shot away, I think Benito probably runs into him and gives away a penalty. I see a load of people now whittling down what Adam Ida's price tag actually is because of the amount of money that he has.
Is this Killian Sheridan's tweet that you're talking about?
Yeah. So I think Adam Ida only costs Celtic something like €3 now at this point.
Well, listen, I'm watching the goal again, and he breaks in. He does well to get goal side of the kind of the big bumbling defender. That pass from Hatate, the passes from the halfway line, it's unbelievable. And I think you might be right. By the time Ida shakes off the defender, who ends up in a heap, he's probably a yard away from the goalkeeper, and there's a bit of an angle there. I think if he lifts it, he probably scores, but it just works out so well for us because the defender ends up putting it in, and at that stage you're just thinking, wow, we're actually going to do this. It's just amazing how one moment can just change the entire complexion of something. But we weren't done yet, because it's never easy with Celtic. If you thought we were just going to amble through in the last 5 minutes, that wasn't going to happen. Daisen Maeda, quite uncharacteristically, kicks out at the young boys player. You can maybe have arguments over, the ball's kind of there, so is it a red? I would say it probably is, because it kind of looks a bit petulant to me. Maeda, by the way, I don't know if you've seen this, but Maida's actually apologised. He stuck a tweet up. It reads, "Thank you for your support. I'm really sorry for causing trouble to the team in such a wonderful atmosphere. I'll continue to do my best for the team. Congratulations to all the Celtic fans and supporters." If one guy has earned enough credit in the bank to get away with something like that, it's Daisen Maeda. But it was a bit daft. I felt he was getting a wee bit wound up in the second half, which is kind of unlike him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to infantilize him too much, but that apology would break your heart. It's like your 4-year-old apologizing for spilling milk or something like that. There's something about I think the red card is utter woke nonsense, to quote a former Premier League manager. But I thought like both of them are at it. Both of them are swinging their legs. He does kick him, but I think a booking is probably fair considering the fact that like he was pulled down multiple times and his man didn't get booked. There was a couple of skirmishes, like I said, over throw-ins. I think, he was just probably frustrated with the way that he was treated throughout the game. So, I mean, thankfully it didn't come back to bite us. But I don't think. Firstly, I don't think it was a red card, but also I don't think he needs to apologize because Celtic, it didn't impact the game. It could have impacted the game, but thankfully, Big Liam Scales was coming on anyway. So, I disappointing that it was a disappointing way to end the match because I don't think he deserved it, and I think it would have been nice to finish the game with 11 men. But I mean, these things happen, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And listen, he's going to miss Villa Park next week. Just the one game, I would imagine. So he'll be a miss at Villa Park, but that game doesn't matter as much as it might have if we hadn't have got that winner. So as you say, Scales comes on for Nicholas Kuhn, and we're just kind of defending at this stage. And it was a kind of long 5 minutes. They had one relatively kind of half decent chance, I think, and then they won the corner, and then right until the last second of the game, virtually, because the ball, I think the game ends with Kasper Schmeichel with the ball. They looked like they might have a chance to equalise. Like, it was just horrible. And even Brendan Rodgers, who's usually this calm figure on the touchline, you could tell he was just huge sigh of relief at full time. But we've done it. We've qualified for the knockout rounds of the Champions League. I believe we're currently sitting 18th in the table, so in the top half of the table, the left hand side of the screen, and 12 points, and we're level with the other 4 teams, and 12 points aren't bad. And you've got Dortmund, Bayern, Real Madrid and Juventus, so we're in good company here.
Yeah, the 12 points is 2 more than most fans predicted. I think most people predicted 10 points, which, I mean, again, probably looking at the table wouldn't actually have been enough now, considering there's a couple of teams on 8 and 9 points. But yeah, good company. After the PSG Man City game, Man City can't finish above Celtic in the table. So, I mean, that's pretty nice.
Oh, wow, yeah. Didn't even realise that.
No matter what happens, they'll be ahead of Manchester City. Depending on how things go, they could also be ahead of PSG. I think looking at the potential opponents, it could be Bayern Munich or Real Madrid, who Celtic face in the playoffs. So yeah, that'll be fun. Can't wait for that. But that'll be another test with the playoffs now. Looking ahead to them is like, did Brendan Rodgers learn anything from the Borussia Dortmund game? So that's now the sort of the interesting talking point. And if I was Brendan Rodgers in that game, I would have been nervous too, because you just know that after the game, if Celtic don't get that result, then immediately the attention turns to him and his Champions League and being the nearly man and not getting it done when it really matters. So to escape that for another week, I would be relieved. But yeah, huge Champions League for Celtic. I think it's better than most people would have predicted at the start, which is always nice.
Yeah, definitely. And as you say, one more game to go, Villa Park next week, and we can go in with that with the pressure off to an extent. They've got the pressure on in terms of finishing the top 8. They're currently 9th, so they probably feel they have to win that game. But listen, if we go to Villa Park and win, we'll finish ahead of Villa. As you said, we're going to finish ahead of Man City. And everything could change there with regards to the teams we could face. So at the moment, if the draw was done tomorrow, as you say, it would be between Bayern and Real Madrid, and basically UEFA would do a draw to decide exactly who it is. But clearly things are going to change. Hopefully Bayern and Real Madrid get out of our vicinity and we end up with... you do have teams like Brest and Lille and Feyenoord and Monaco, Club Brugge, PSV, good teams, but there are potentially ties here that we could look at as being winnable, and that's kind of the dream. But I think that's probably a conversation for another day. For me, just an amazing achievement for Celtic to qualify and have 12 points with a game to spare. We've only lost 1 game out of the 7. And I was looking earlier, Liverpool are the only team in the whole tournament who have lost fewer games than us. And there's only 6 teams. We're one of only 6 teams who have only lost 1. So it's remarkable when you look at it, the kind of fact that a year ago we were basically losing every game we played at this level, and now we've gone 1 defeat in 8 at the top Champions League level. So amazing achievement. Listen, we can discuss that some more. Also interesting that it was an own goal that won it for us. I think older fans will maybe remember our first meeting with Young Boys, UEFA Cup tie 1993. It was one goal that decided that tie, and that was also an own goal from a Young Boys player. So that's interesting. Any other comments on the game, the night, etc.?
No, I think it's just it's fun to see Celtic do well in the Champions League. It's after being the beating boys over the last couple of years, it's been a really fun campaign, and it's really just a bonus from here on out. The aim was to get to the knockout stages. Brendan Rodgers has done that, and now it's just give our best now to have a pop at getting into the last 16. So fair dues to Brendan Rodgers. Deserves even more credit now. More credit in the bank with Celtic fans. He's slowly reeling everyone back in.
It's going to be amazing, the knockout tie, whoever we get, because it's either going to be, as we say, a game where we feel like we can maybe win this and get into the last 16, or it's going to be complete glamour and you're going to get a couple of games against one of the teams looking to win the competition. So we've got all that to get excited about and look forward to. I was looking just quickly, so it's next Wednesday we play Villa. The draw is next Friday. And as I say, it's a weird draw because we'll know one of 2 teams that we can face, and then they'll do the draw. The playoff first leg is 11th or 12th of February, so not far away at all. It's like 3 weeks, isn't it? And then the second leg is the following week. So this is, that round will be done in a month's time. So this is all going to happen pretty quickly. Right, just to discuss the other thing people are talking about before we go. Reports from France that Kyogo could be off ski. French outlet La Parisienne, shortly after full time, reported that Rennes have agreed a deal to sign Kyogo. They give a figure of €12 million, and they're pretty definitive in their language here. They say that Kyogo has probably played his last match for Celtic against Young Boys. There's a second part to this. Another French outlet, which is a daily newspaper, Ouest France, whose HQ is in Rennes, they say that their information is that Kyogo will leave and Jota will come to Celtic. There's no mention of Jota in the original Le Parisien report that I say, but I think there's been other stuff here. I think the Scottish Sun saying we're in for Jota. So stuff is happening, and people are discussing it.
Yeah, it's a real sort of reunion of players that used to play for Celtic coming back, with Kieran Tierney apparently coming in the door as well. It's an interesting, like, obviously we'll start with Kyogo. Like, I mean, he's going to be a huge departure. Like, he has been in my opinion, Celtic's best player outside of probably Cal McGregor over the last couple of years. Hasn't scored as many goals this year, but I think as an overall player has been, like, pound for pound the best value that Celtic have gotten in the last 15 years, and he's going to be a huge loss. Where does Jota come in? That's going to be a really interesting one, because obviously Celtic are short at winger, but that's more a depth issue as opposed to like Maeda or Kuhn playing badly. So you're wondering, like, is Maeda going to be the striker with Jota on the wing again? Or how is that going to work? If I were to say to you hypothetically, after the Villa game, going into that, let's say it's Bayern Munich or Real Madrid, with Kieran Tierney starting at left back, Jota on left wing, and Maeda up front instead of Kyogo, do you think Celtic are in a better or worse position than they would be if they went out with the same starting lineup as tonight?
I think better. I mean, Tierney for me is clearly an upgrade. It's a weird one with Jota because he's so different to Maeda. And then I think Maeda can play up front. I think, he's done that for Japan at World Cups and looked good. But I do think that if Kyogo moved on, I do think the club would have to move for another striker. And listen, I absolutely love Kyogo. He's one of my favourite Celtic players ever, and he's been huge for us, obviously, as you say, so many big moments.
I suppose the last couple of years have taught Celtic fans not to grow too attached to players. And I would say, like, probably for the fans that are in Celtic Park every week, Kyogo is probably the one they are most attached to, because obviously he leads the celebrations after big wins and things like that. But I think it's just the reality of having a 29, 30-year-old striker who's gone down to less than 20 goals a season. If you get 12 million for him, but I think, like you say, Celtic need to replace him with a striker, and I'd be skeptical unless it's a situation with the Arne Engels and Matt O'Reilly where Celtic have already been working in the background knowing that Kyogo is leaving and they've already got their man lined up and it's all going to happen all at once. But like January can be difficult for that. I think thankfully, like worst comes to worst, I won't be up in arms if Kyogo leaves and Celtic don't bring in a striker for big money in January, because I do realise that's difficult. But because I do think until the end of the season, do Celtic have enough depth in the striker position to get them through the season? Yeah, at this stage they probably do. And Adamida will need to start scoring, but I think if he gets more games, he probably will do that. But I do think this needs to be a situation where if you're getting rid of Kyogo, who is part of that core of Cameron Carter-Vickers, Cal McGregor, and Kyogo for the last 3 years, you need to be replacing that with a player who's going to get you 20 goals a season. So we'll just have to wait to see what Celtic do with it. I'd be a little worried about the Jota thing just because it hasn't really worked out for him since he's left the club. But doesn't mean it's not going to work out for him when he comes back to the club. But it does kind of like he has been sort of out of eye and out of sight and out of mind for the last 2 years without doing anything of real note. So, you know, that he might not be coming back the same player as we had.
Yeah, potentially. But then again, maybe coming back to Celtic could get him going again. As I say, nothing totally definitive about Jota. I certainly think, and I know people will probably look at it and go, nah, I don't see Kyogo leaving. Fine. I think from the wording and pretty reputable outlet in France, and a number of French outlets reporting this, I think Kyogo might be heading, sadly. And listen, he's going to take a lot of replacing. That's what I will say. He's been an unbelievable player for us. Even tonight, even though he didn't score, you look at the chances that he created and how important he is to the team. But it may just be that he feels, I did see reports that maybe he wants to play in a better league to give him more of an opportunity to play for his country, which, listen, that's fair enough, and we always feared that might happen. So that might be what's happening. For me, Celtic would need to bring in a top replacement, but I'd kind of hopefully trust Brendan Rodgers and the scouting team to do that. I mean, he did quite well with strikers his first time at the club, didn't he, with Dembele and Edward. So if we replace Kyogo with someone like that, not specifically those two, but someone of that calibre, a bit younger, I think it could work. But it's all happening, and people are chatting. And the main thing is, though, Champions League knockouts, we've got it to look forward to. And everything is good in the world. Give me your conclusions.
Yeah, I think money in the bank into the Champions League. No excuses now for the board not to replace Kyogo. That's probably my main thing is like the board has no excuse not to replace Kyogo now. We're in the Champions League knockouts. That's loads of money in the bank. We're selling them for 12 million. That's more money in the bank. They've obviously got some discounts off Adamida because he scored loads of big goals, as Killian Sheridan said. So yeah, really, really positive couple of days for Celtic overall. And after the stodgy December that it's been, we're starting to see light at the end of the tunnel. It's almost February. We're into the Champions League knockouts, so happy days.
We've been seeing light all winter or summer here. I don't know what you're talking about. It's been beautiful here.
Different moods. It's been really warm.
Yeah, it's actually not great today. Go and enjoy the rest of your day anyway, mate. Thanks very much for coming on, and we'll catch up with you soon. Big thanks to Stevie for sending in his thoughts as well from Celtic Park. Big thanks, even bigger thanks to you for watching. If you've not yet subscribed to the channel, if you just come across us, please consider clicking that button. It's free and means a lot for us. It means a lot to me as we go for 13,000 subscribers. Let me know what you made of the game. We'll discuss it all and more tomorrow.